Hi everybody!
26 years is a long time to wait for anything, especially in the world of video games. But that's how long it took between Garou Mark of the Wolves and Fatal Fury City of the Wolves. So, was it worth the wait, and is it worth your money? We'll dive deeper into those topics and more after a brief history lesson on not just Fatal Fury, but SNK itself. But before we get into the detailed look at the history, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you won't miss my future reviews, along with my hot takes in not just fighting games, but JRPGs and gaming in general. So without mucking about further, let's open the history books. To tell the story of Fatal Fury properly, we have to go back to the late 80s. Arcades were all the rage back then, and while it was certainly a boom period, fighting games were very much in their infancy. In fact, we have to talk about the original Street Fighter briefly, as it had kind of influenced what would come later, but not too much later. The first Street Fighter would launch in 1987, and while it's kind of bad by today's standards, it was a trailblazer. And part of that trailblazing was thanks to Takashi Nishiyama, who directed the original Street Fighter, and he's responsible for the now iconic Hadouken. However, his vision differed from the overlords at Capcom, so when SNK came calling, Nishiyama-san jumped ship faster than a rat off the Titanic. Things would then be silent until 1991, when both Capcom and SNK would come out with brand new fighting games. Street Fighter II would launch in March of that year, and the first Fatal Fury would follow in late November. People generally favored Street Fighter, something which holds true to this day. But there was something different about Fatal Fury, something which was also trailblazing. You see, fighting games to that point in time were like, story? What story? I mean, some games did have stories within the arcade ladder, but they were nothing to write home about. Also, if we're being honest, most fighting games still don't have great stories. But both Fatal Fury and another SNK title called The Art of Fighting had far greater emphasis on this, along with the King of Fighters. Basically, this was SNK's unique selling point. In the modern era, it's generally NRS titles that hold the crown for the best storytelling in a fighting game. This is something that SNK hasn't reached yet, but I imagine they will at some point, since they know their audience actually are all lore whores, which will be merch for my channel at some point, so keep your eyes open for when those shirts drop. Anyways, long story short, SNK were relatively successful with their fighting games for a time. However, at the turn of the millennium, arcades started to die out, and die out fast, which eventually led to SNK facing financial troubles, going bankrupt, bought for parts and effectively gutted, came back, faced more financial struggles, and then stuck around somehow. It was off the backs of KOF 14, 2019 Samurai Showdown, and the King of Fighters 15 that SNK was able to pull up their bootstraps and arrive where they are today. But Garou Mark of the Wolves remains to this day one of the most beloved 2D fighting games in FGC history. So, is City of the Wolves a worthy successor to one of the most beloved fighting games? I would say, generally speaking, yes. The game is fast-paced, with attacks that actually feel like they're connecting, and not like you're waving around a wet pool noodle like in Street Fighter 6. While not as technically impressive as Tekken 8 or Street Fighter 6, City of the Wolves has beautiful graphics with their own charm, combining elements of manga with American comic books, making for a super stylish game, where the graphics are just going to age way more gracefully than its contemporaries. I've said it once, and I'll say it again. Stylized graphics are always better than photorealism, because the photorealistic games will age like a Neil Druckmann game being teabagged by a grandmother with dementia who also happens to have lost her dentures. All in all, not a pretty sight. But a pretty face can only get you so far. It's like the monks said in their 1979 hit, "Nice legs, shame about her face." That's describing Street Fighter 6 there. Fatal Fury has nice legs and a nice face, and by nice face, I'm referring to the gameplay. Not only is the combat buttery smooth, like I said earlier, things just feel good when they're connecting. Also, just like I said in a previous video, City of the Wolves is one of the deepest fighting games ever. It was merely speculation on my end when I made that video a little over a year ago now. But I was proven right.
Tell me when I'm telling lies!
City of the Wolves is indeed an insanely technical fighter. Even setting the control scheme to smart mode doesn't remove that aspect. You have so many systems to consider when playing, you pretty much need a master's degree just to be a semi-competitive player at it. Then you also need a fucking PhD to contend with the sweat hogs who know life this game and other SNK titles. For whatever reason, SNK fighting games bring that element out in people. The ones who love them love these games so much they aren't just drinking the SNK Kool-Aid, they're drinking said Kool-Aid and are so far into the weeds, they're high off them without even lighting one up. Don't believe me? Here's a list of all the things you can do in this game that aren't your typical normal and special moves. You have 3 types of supers, known as gears, those being Ignition Gear, which is your level 1 super, Redline Gear, which is your level 2 super, and Hidden Gear, which requires you to have 2 bars of meter, plus be in your SPG state. What is SPG, you ask? I'm glad you did, as that's probably one of the most important mechanics and one of the holdovers from Mark of the Wolves, albeit it was called TOP back then. Just like the top system, players can select where on their health bar the SPG gauge will go, which is just a nice feature to have as it increases player expression. When in SPG mode, players will slowly recover health, will gain access to the Rev Blow, and will gain a few additional properties like increased damage output. Putting it at the end of your health bar effectively makes it a pseudo comeback mechanic, but where you place it entirely depends on player preference, and to a lesser degree how meter hungry your character happens to be, as some characters will be better suited having it either in the middle or right at the beginning of a round. That adds some layer of strategy to the game, but those aren't the only mechanics players have to contend with. They also need to consider their rev meter, which acts similar to the burnout gauge in Street Fighter 6, along with considering the Just Defend, which will restore a small amount of HP when timed right, plus giving other advantages to the defensive player. On top of that, you also have Hyper Defense, which acts in a similar manner but with a different input. Defenders also have an additional tool called Rev Guard, which helps with blocking special attack damage. You also have guard cancelling, guard breaking, plus feints and wild punishes, all of which add layers of depth to the game. Are you seeing why I was saying you pretty much need a PhD to keep up with the sweat hogs? No lifing this title. Okay, since I've waxed poetic about the mechanics of this game and how good and fun they are, is there anything else I feel is deserving of praise? Yep, I feel like the various modes on offer make the game a great package, whether you're playing single player stuff or with friends either in person or online. City of the Wolves literally has everything you could want in a fighting game. It has great mechanics, as I've said. It also has a decent arcade ladder along with time attack, survival mode, episodes of Southtown, and amazing rollback netcode with crossplay right out of the box. The soundtrack also happens to be amazing. The final thing I want to highlight is how well done the lobby system for this game is. It's very much akin to how things were done with the King of Fighters 14, which to date is my favorite way of handling a lobby system. SNK needs to keep this system going forward. However, every game, no matter how good, always has some warts. Though I wouldn't say City of the Wolves has a warty face. It might have a mole or two, which some people might like. So let's get into what I don't like about the game next. But if you've made it this far into the video, smash that like button. This segment is likely to be significantly shorter than the previous 2 sections, as I don't feel SNK screwed the pooch with this game. There are quite a few quirks in there where I question the design team's thought process, but if I squint hard enough, I can kind of see what they were going for. One thing I found rather questionable was where SNK placed time attack and survival modes, as they are hidden away within the training section of the menu, which I feel is very unintuitive when it comes to finding it. Which brings up one of my other complaints with the game. SNK seemed intent on making the menus both stylish and simplistic at the same time, and pleasing neither crowd in the process. I can't quite place my finger on it, but placement of different modes and other things just seems highly illogical. Like trying to adjust the CPU difficulty, for example. You can't really do it from the main menu, but you could with KOF 14 and 15, so there is that slight frustration. I also have some gripes with episodes of Southtown. but I still commend SNK for essentially including some side stories to make the narrative feel more fleshed out. So what is it that I disliked about episodes of Southtown? It's twofold really. The character diversity is super low, meaning you'll fight the same handful of characters over and over, plus a laggy menu system. This was one of the only areas of the game where I found the menus to be laggy, so I feel like SNK didn't optimize it as well as they should have for this mode. Episodes of Southtown also feels a little bit on the grindy side if you want to complete it 100%. So, as a whole, does Fatal Fury's City of the Wolves live up to the 26-year wait? I would say yes, it lives up to those expectations and shatters them. Yes, that was a King of Fighters 15 reference, as that game's tagline was Shatter Your Expectations. City of the Wolves did this and then some for me, so I would say go out, buy this game now, find a small Discord community to play with, to rev it up and unleash your fury. City of the Wolves might just be my Game of the Year contender already, and at the time of recording, we're not even halfway into the year. But to summarize, the game is great. There are a few quirks that don't make the experience bad, but could get annoying as the menus aren't exactly the best, but other than that, the game is an excellent experience and one I highly recommend. There's also a character for everyone on this roster, as it's already a diverse cast, despite being only 17 characters deep at launch, and 22 once all of the Season 1 characters are out, which is free to everyone who purchases the game, just packing more value into a game already jam-packed with it. So have you picked up City of the Wolves yet? If so, what did you think of it? Let me know in the comments section, and tell me who you're maining or who you plan to main. My rotation has primarily been Jenny, Preacha, and Mai, who happen to be the three characters I'd pegged as being my potential mains before the game was out. Thanks go out to my current channel members, whose names are appearing on screen now. Click the join button or the link in the description if you want to help me make this content better. Now check out my review for Garou Mark of the Wolves, and until next time, keep blazing that trail.